Hello, welcome to Permission to Heal. I'm Marcy Brockman, and I'm here today with Shari Strong, a friend of mine from two different professional organizations, and we have connected over the internet for many, many, many months, and I'm so very pleased that she is here to join us today for our inaugural episode of Permission to Heal. Shari Strong is a mindset coach, a pastoral counselor, a speaker, an author who helps women move on from destructive crisis condition, what she calls DCC, when unexpected challenges show up in their lives. She has learned that mindset matters, and it's not about thinking more positively. Her first book, My Life Begins Next Monday, details her journey from a high school dropout to a director of a successful.com to successful entrepreneur. She has researched 7 mindsets that help her to overcome life challenges such as oral mandibular dystonia after a car accident in 2003 and supporting an adult child with schizophrenia. She has keynoted for Bloomberg Financial, facilitated to thousands of workshops across the country, and been featured on yourtango.com and shared stages with very notable and famous people. Shari, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Marcy. I'm excited to be your first one.
The first one, the inaugural episode. I just conceived of this about 2 weeks ago. So
hey, you know what? You took action and you move forward. If your audience knows anything now, they've already got their first tip.
Absolutely.
For permission to land, you got to take action.
Absolutely. No one can give you permission but yourself.
Amen, sister. I love it.
Absolutely. Okay, so as we're crafting this, as I'm crafting this out of my own indomitable imagination, we're going to begin each of these episodes with 6 questions. Sort of in the same spirit that in the Actors Studio used to end them, if anybody is of my same age and knows what I'm talking about. So I'm going to ask all of my guests the same questions just because I think the longevity of this, I'm going to very much enjoy the difference in the answers.
Yes.
Okay, so what 5 words would you use to describe yourself?
What 5 words would I use to describe myself? All right, well, passionate. So I think we probably have that in common.
Most likely, yes.
Happy. And most people always say, you always have a smile on your face.
It's a good way to be.
Yeah. Driven.
Yes. Well, to do what you've done, you have to be.
Yes. Strategic. I see the big picture and see pathways to things that other people may not necessarily see. And I would say faithful. You got to have faith to walk forward through crisis. So I have a great deal of faith.
Excellent. Excellent. Very good choices. What is your favorite way to spend a day? If you could spend a day, non-COVID day.
A non-COVID day. So, you know what? A perfect day would be getting up in the morning and reading, meditating, prayer. Faith is a very big part of my life. With a cup of coffee and just quiet, like no noise. Back in the old days, I always had to have music playing in the morning. Now I don't need the music so much. That comes throughout the day.
Sure.
I don't need to start it that way. I would probably write a little because I do like to write or journal, something like that. A perfect day would include then, of course, spending time with my husband, which maybe play 9 holes of golf.
Nice.
Just to get outside and be outdoors. And anytime I don't live near my grandchildren, but if I can FaceTime them or even text them now. In fact, today is one of my grandchildren's birthdays.
Happy birthday.
Yes, 11 years old. So if I can FaceTime or text them, have some connection with them, that would be a perfect day.
That sounds fabulous. I've never played golf, actually, except for miniature golf, but I don't think that counts.
I didn't start until I was in my 30s. And I didn't think I would like it, but now I've really grown to like it. So it's something I could do, continue doing. I remember the last day I played volleyball, the last day I played softball. I remember all those, and golf is something that I think I can continue doing.
It's probably
that's
a little
why I started
less strenuous on the body than softball or
yes, or volleyball or yes, it is.
Nice. I like that. and you get time with your husband, which is super awesome.
And I'm
Uh,
lucky because my husband likes to play with me. A lot of husbands out there don't want to play golf with their wives. That's their time away. And
uh,
I'm very blessed. He wants to play golf with me. So
that's fabulous. That's fabulous. What's your favorite childhood memory?
my favorite childhood memory would probably be going to my grandma's house on Christmas. I was the oldest of all the grandchildren, so I have a cousin. So I'm over 50, and
So am I.
my youngest cousin is 18.
Wow. So you
Yeah,
had your
so
grandparents all to yourself.
so I was the oldest of all the grandchildren. My mom was the oldest of children. So, yeah, and my aunt, in fact, before she passed, and well, even now, I was a year older than her, than my mom's sister.
Oh,
So, going to my grandma's house at Christmas was a blast because my uncles were like my brothers, only, they were like uncles. So
that's
they would
cool.
get me into trouble. So it was awesome. Yes.
And you got to claim innocence. It's my
Yeah,
uncle's
and
fault.
yes, yeah, they told me to do it.
Exactly. That's awesome. What's your favorite meal?
Favorite meal, I would say I love bay lobster tails because I don't get them very often. If I do, it's not like where you're at, where you can have them and they're fresh. So probably steak and lobster tails. That's probably my
Surf and
favorite meal.
turf.
Yep, surf and turf.
I think my husband would probably like that too. Um, what one piece of advice would you give your younger self?
One piece of advice I would say as I look back, you're going to make some bad decisions and it's okay. You don't have to beat yourself up every time a decision you make. Just learn from them. Don't keep making them. But there's a difference between beating yourself up and learning from them. And I used to just beat myself up every time I made a bad decision or something that didn't go right. So I'd probably say go with the flow more, make the decisions, learn
Right.
from them, and move on. Just don't add all the emotion to it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. What's one thing that you would most like to change about the world?
It's interesting you asked this question because somebody just asked me this last week, like if you could start a movement. And I discussed this with my husband. And so I'm hoping now this goes into this existence because this is the second time I've spoke about it. But I even have a name for it. So it would be called L2U, like the letter L, the number two, the letter U. Listen to understand, and then 12. So I would start a challenge. Everything's about challenges nowadays, a 5-day challenge, a 10-day challenge. I would start a 12-month challenge. Go speak to somebody that doesn't look like you, maybe has the opposite views politically or faith, and listen to understand, not
That's
to
huge.
not to convince them, not to agree with them, not to disagree with them, just to why do they believe the way they believe? Why do they think the way they think? Why just listen to understand. And I think if we could listen to understand, I really do believe we could have world peace. So so
We're pretty
that
darn
is
close to it.
yes. So that's my challenge. So
That's
I'm
a
I
wonderful thing, Shari.
yeah, thank you. Now I'm hoping I better go out there and trademark that before somebody of your listeners takes it and runs.
L2U12.
LTU 12, we got
I'm going
it.
to see that everywhere.
Yes,
Hashtag LTU12. Start a hashtag. We could do that.
there we go. I love it.
Exactly. That's awesome. Okay, so now you have this passionate work that you do to help women.
Yes,
You have a program called Break Free from Crisis.
yes.
What I would like you to tell us all about that, because I think that that's really important.
Well, throughout my life, I have had a lot of crisis and I had to live through crisis. Isn't that like most entrepreneurs or people who are out helping people? It's something usually they've gone through or somebody close to them has gone through. And
It's a
I have,
catalyst.
yeah, it's a catalyst for what we want to do. And mine was always, I knew always that it was supposed to do something great. So just to give you a little bit of background, while I'm doing what I do now, it didn't start out this way. I was actually from the other side of the tracks, so to speak. So by the time I was 21, had 3 babies,
Wow.
2 husbands, was a high school dropout. And um, I remember sitting on the floor of a trailer with my second husband, listening to cassette tapes of Tony Robbins, which he'd probably die now if I'm talking about that because I see him as a peer now, not as somebody, out there. But he's been around for so long. But I remember
Sure.
investing in that, which I shouldn't have been investing in, taking my waitress money. But I had this dream of inspiring people. It gave me hope that if I went through all of this stuff,
Right.
I hope I can teach somebody else something. Now I believe that came from God. That wisdom came from God because I was not smart enough to know to have that dream. But so over the years, then but things would happen. So I'd still do everything they would tell me to do, and things would still happen. And you mentioned in the bio, I was in a car accident in
Sure.
2003 and had to learn how to control the right side of my face, and it would droop. And to this day, I still do. And if the audience could see me, I would show them that I still control the droopiness of the right side of my face. And I have no idea how I do it. And but there was
Muscle
crisis.
memory control.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I met a friend who was a speech therapist and a friend who was a physical therapist because all the attorneys, everybody wanted me to have surgery, and I just refused to do it. That's a whole story. But it caused crisis, and I was in the middle of a divorce, and had to give up my sales job at the time, and I had 3 teenagers. It just seemed like crises were constantly happening. Of course,
Sure.
now I know that doesn't change. What changes is our mindset on how we handle what happens to us.
Absolutely.
So I became obsessed with learning about the mind and a higher power and and it's more than just being positive. So I don't even like using that word positive or negative. For me, it's being constructive or destructive. We either have a constructive mindset or we have a destructive mindset. And so it became a passion. And to this day, everything I do is inherently connected to how can we do that better? How can we do it different? What's stopping you from moving forward? And just that curiosity. And so I've researched what I believe are 7 mindsets that we need to, and we can go in and out of them. They all serve us, even the ones that are like survival and denial. At the lower end of the spectrum of vibration, if you will, but they do help us move forward. So that's what has really catapulted me into this, how to help people break through crisis, and that you don't have to continually learn, react in the same manner.
Sure. So many people get stuck and they victimize themselves because they don't know how to pull themselves out of it.
Yes,
They keep letting things happen to themselves, feeling like they have no agency.
exactly. And they learn out of habit. Oh, we got out of it this time, which is great. We want everybody to learn how to get out of it. But then what I call destructive crisis condition is that's where it stops. They don't
Right.
know how to go beyond it. So
Right.
then when the next crisis happens, they've learned how to get out of it. But how do you get beyond it so that you can still move and have everything you want? Because I believe a lot of people believe that there's enough out there for them and you, Marcy, but not for me too. Like there's not enough for me too.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I
guess
was one
what?
of those people. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but I believe it's that crisis thinking that keeps us thinking that way. So how do we get beyond that? Well, there's mindsets. Let's learn how to think through this so that we can get beyond it this next time and not let it pull us back.
That's very cool. What are the 7?
The 7, I'm so glad you asked.
Well, you've got
Survival.
me so curious now. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm ready to take notes.
Survival,
Okay.
denial, acceptance, then growth, right? Because once we accept something, acceptance is the toughest one, right? Accepting anything, accepting our
Yeah.
finances, accepting life, accepting my parents, accepting my kids, toughest one. But once we get past that, then we can grow. So growth mindset. Then once we grow, then we can confidence mindset. And then it's a connection mindset. How can we connect with others? And then it's grace and giving yourself a break and giving others a break. Because the reason I believe we're not able to accept others for who they are is our ego. we haven't figured out who we are yet. So how can
Right.
I accept you, who is
If I haven't
different,
accepted
if
myself.
I haven't accepted myself? Exactly. So those are the 7. And currently writing a book. Hopefully it'll be out in 2021. And not
Ooh, I
hopefully, it
can't
will
wait.
be.
Of
Yeah, it'll
course it
be
will.
called Break Free from Crisis. But I'll be talking about the 7 mindsets.
That's very cool. Now, are they linear? Like, do you have to progress through them in an order, or are
I
they sort of fluid?
A good question. So I teach them linear, but once you learn them, you understand that, you know what? I might just have to survive this moment. That's okay. Like having that mindset, it's being able to recognize it. So if I just have to survive this moment, okay, maybe I don't need to deny anything, but I can go ahead and grow from this and then feel confident and move forward. So I teach them linear just because most women who are in crisis, or anybody for that matter, it's easier and logical to learn it that way. But
Sure.
once you learn it, then you go, wait, I'm in survival. Oh my gosh, I'm totally in denial. And then they can start to recognize it.
Yeah, I
Good
find
question.
myself sort of like getting not necessarily stuck, but like regressing into acceptance a bunch of times. You know,
Yes.
like I get really pissed at a certain situation. I get really frustrated about something, and like I just don't want to accept that that's the way it is. And
Oh,
I don't let it get me stuck anymore. It used to get me stuck. And
yes.
now I'm able to sort of transcend that a bit, but I still like, well, why does that have to be? That doesn't make any sense to me. And
Yes.
I perseverate over that a while, and then I move on. But
See, and isn't that interesting? See, how long takes us to accept something is exactly how long we'll be stuck.
right,
So, but yet we're human, and so that's why acceptance is the toughest mindset. However, I will say this: there's techniques you can learn, right? And we're all different. And of course, I like to teach. About strengths, and there's lots of assessments out there of personalities. There's also influencers. Like my number one motivator, I should say, is influence. I love to be. You tell me I can influence somebody, be in front of somebody, teach somebody. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm like, oh, do I have to accept that? Okay. So,
right,
so
right.
when we learn what motivates us as well, then so there's a lot more to it. But those are the basics. But how we move through them then becomes the question, and that's what I love to teach women. Is okay. Let's dig into who you are, because we're all unique,
Sure.
and once we can find that out, then we can accept things a little bit quicker. And some people, they need hope. In order to accept something, they need hope. If they're grieving somebody, for instance, how do you accept that? I counsel a lot of people who have lost somebody, and usually I think it's this. And yes, they are grieving, but it's usually they haven't. It isn't that they haven't accepted the person has gone. It's they haven't accepted something they didn't do,
Yeah.
or they start to realize they need to be doing something, is usually what happens. Why,
Right.
I told them I was going to write this book. It usually always comes back to self.
Sure.
And they think they're grieving that person, and they are, but there's usually something for self that's in there. So I help them accept that. Now let's look at you. What are you not accepting, or what have you made excuses about that you thought you should have been doing and you're not doing now? And
Yeah.
this death has, put that mirror up to you. So,
Yeah.
yep, acceptance. Oh, it's tough.
It's tough. That's tough. My mom died 7 years ago this past October. After a very long battle with mental illness. She was an undiagnosed bipolar, and she was
Okay.
narcissistic, and for the last at least decade of her life was an opiate addict.
Uh-huh.
And just it was always someone else's fault. She was just it completely the addiction completely transformed her brain. And
Mm-hmm.
at some point, approximately 2002,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, she stopped actually being the mom that I knew and became something else,
Mm-hmm.
or someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And January of 2011, 2011, 2012, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
January 2012, I closed the door on the relationship
Mm-hmm.
because I, just like you would turn on a light,
Yep.
suddenly we were standing in my living room in my house, and she was screaming at me, blaming me for everything. And I was kind of used to that. I was in my mid-40s. I was sort of used to just her speaking to me that way. But this particular night, she took it too far, and she started screaming at my kids. And like you would turn on a light, the mama lion came out. And I realized at that moment that I no longer had to accept being spoken to that way.
Bingo.
And that
Acceptance.
Right. And I was no longer going to allow myself to be victimized or abused by her. And that it was not only it was my responsibility at that point to protect my den and my cubs as the mama lion.
Children.
And I threw her out. And that was the last time we spoke. And then approximately 18 months later, she died. And we had never spoken again. I mean, I did reach out via a letter to offer an olive branch. I will take you to in-person rehab, and then you will never be alone a single day in your life. Or if you do nothing and stay where you are, you're going to lose us. I'm her only biological daughter, and I gave birth to her only biological grandchildren. And if that's not enough of a motivator, then live and be well, but you're not going to be near us because I have to protect these little people. And when she died, the grief was overwhelming.
I can. You're feeling it.
I was relieved that the toxicity was over. I was relieved that I wouldn't ever have to defend my turf again against her. But the little girl in me wanted her mommy. And wanted that ever unattainable idyllic relationship, like the one I was building between myself and my daughter. I wanted that with my mom. And I had to sort of reconcile that I was never going to get that. And I was also as the only child, the only person who was going to eulogize her. So how do I get from that toxicity, guilt, overwhelming, I don't know what the word is, angst, horror, to a respectful, loving enough place to eulogize her respectfully? I couldn't stand in front of a congregation in a funeral home and say, all this horrible stuff, because that's my experience with her. That shouldn't be the last thing that everybody else hears about her. And so my process with that was to go through, she was 69 years old, to go through like 70 years of family photographs. Luckily, I'm the keeper of the photographs. And I started to see her as a human being, as a baby, and as a little girl that my grandmother loved, and as a teenager, and her prom pictures and her wedding pictures and pictures of her with me when I was little, when she was still her, And I found her humanity again.
And good for you, because I call that the white picket fence theory. So we all have a white picket fence theory about something, right? Like, and what I call it that is because we dream of growing up, getting married, having 2 children, and having the perfect house and the white picket fence. And we do that in every part of our lives. And whether it's a relationship with our parents, our kids, most people, when you find out and you dig in, there is no perfect family out there, right? And
we're all dysfunctional and crazy.
Yes. But yet we still have this white picket fence dream. And I'm not saying I want to get rid of that. That's not what I'm saying. But it's accepting that, okay, where is reality and the white
we froze.
picket fence dream, and what can I do so that I can live in joy and peace moving forward, right? So that was you found a good way to do that. So how did the eulogy go then? How did you do?
It went well, because I'm a writer. I'm an English teacher. I've been writing since I could figure out how to hold a pen. So I crafted what I said so that, instead of saying my mother's my cautionary tale and whatever she would do, I would do the opposite, which was true, but not a nice thing to say. I would say, through her actions, she taught me how to live my life in a way that would be meaningful and happy for me, which is true, but it's another
Yes.
way of saying the same
Lot
thing.
softer. Yeah,
Right,
lot softer for
exactly.
people to palatable for people to
Right.
hear.
And
Yeah.
there were tons of wonderful memories. I mean, she was a
Yeah.
very generous, caring, delightfully passionate woman until the mental illness
Yes.
went unchecked and incorrectly medicated, and then she over medicated, overcompensated with oxy, and that, forget it. But
Yeah.
until then, she was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
bipolar,
well
so
just
sometimes
well
she could
just
be,
well just so you
Cruella
know, Marcy,
DeVille.
you may not know this, but I have an adult son who his birthday is today.
Oh, happy birthday.
He's 30. He has paranoid schizophrenia. So
Oh,
from drug use. So I am very familiar with that disease
yeah.
as well. So again, mindset
Mindset is everything.
and
Right.
crisis, right? Like I've been blessed with being able to figure this out so I
It
could
teaches
share
you
it with people.
resilience and
Yeah,
flexibility.
absolutely. Absolutely it does. I like to think so anyway.
Well, it's either that or you lose total control over everything.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. It's interesting how that evolves. But and it worked, in learning how to deal with my mom and how to keep myself intact and keep my family intact. um I've been in therapy for 30 years, and I've been keeping journals since 1984. So I don't know how long that is. 36 years, some crazy thing. Am I old enough for that? I don't know. I don't know.
Hey, I
um
get you. My youngest just turned 30 today, and I was looking at
and
the
your
video.
granddaughter is 11
But
too.
yeah, I have 5 grandchildren. So they're 12, 11. Another one will be 11 next month. One will be um, 8 next month, and then a 4-year-old.
Wow.
So I know I'm going. And today was the first time I actually looked at a video, because I always do happy birthday videos on Facebook
Nice.
for them all. And then I looked at it and go, oh my gosh, people are going to see this and go, she's aging. And they may not say finally, but I'm like, I'm finally aging. No, they may have been thinking it for 2 years or 3 years, but
Wow.
I think it's all in the head too, because I do not feel like my youngest is 30. So,
No, my stepdaughter is the oldest of my husband's and my four children, and she'll kill me if I wreck this. 88, so she's 32.
uh-huh.
Yeah, and I could have given birth to her. I'm certainly old
Yes.
enough, but I
Yes.
didn't. Yeah, it's crazy, and she's got 5 kids, so it's
Oh
big,
yeah. So you're
big
right
crazy
there.
family.
I
We're right
know.
here. We're right
Yeah.
here.
And we're doing so good, Marcy. We look good, girlfriend.
Well, I feel like I'm about 38.
Yeah, I would say that too. I would say upper 30s. I I have I like the wisdom that you get
Yeah,
over 40, but I mean, I ride bike every day. We go bike riding. We do mountain biking. Have a
that's
good
cool.
story there, but we just started that last year. Yeah, can I tell a quick story about one of my
Of
grandkids?
course.
So
Absolutely.
one of them, he'll be 11 next month. He's 10. So my daughters were pregnant at the same time. And so
That
he
must have been
said,
fun for them.
yeah, for me, I didn't live near them, so I was like, oh my gosh, I have to fly back on Thanksgiving, and I got to fly back on Christmas, and but it worked out, and I made it, all of them made it.
Mazel
But
tov.
so he said he came out and visited us over the summer. I had cousins camp, and he was like, Grandma, do you know that in the old days, people over 50 would die because they didn't have cures and stuff? I said, well, Kaden, do you know Grandma is 51? He goes, I know, but I don't worry about you because you stay active.
That's awesome.
I know, because he's like, you ride bikes and you're always doing something.
Good.
I don't worry about you. You stay active. I was like, oh, I'm in the active category. Well, that's
Nice.
good to know.
That's wonderful. Yeah, my dad will be 81 in January, and I think he's cardiovascularly healthier than I am. He plays
It's
tennis
sad
like
nowadays.
so many times a week. He's in great shape. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think
Amazing.
it's a different world, but I love that story. I'll never forget that.
That's so funny. Yeah, I remember when my maternal grandmother was 89 years old. I had a conversation with her about, I don't no idea how it came about, but she said to me that when she wakes up in the morning, as she's laying in bed, before she moves, before she opens up her eyes, in her brain, she's about 25 years old.
Oh, I love that.
And then
Intention.
and then she moves and she
Uh-huh.
realizes, oh, that hurts and that hurts and that aches. And oh, okay, so she's definitely not 25. And she slowly starts to age herself in her brain. But it isn't until she gets into the bathroom and reconnoids that face in the mirror. And she's like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I'm an old woman. She was 89. And she's like, you'll never sort of reconcile,
Connect that dot. Yeah.
connect the dot between how you feel and your mental age in your brain versus your chronological age on a calendar.
What your body is looking like. Yeah. Well, I hope that's true.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great. Yes.
That'd be great. That'd be great. We'll have to break free from that. I'm not sure I can accept that.
I love it. I love it.
We'll have to give ourselves a lot of grace.
Yes, there you go. See, you've already got it. You've already got it.
Well, I took notes.
So many people think too, I'll just go there, is they think you start with grace, right? Give yourself a break and do this and give yourself a break, or, don't think so bad. If it was that easy, we would all do it.
Sure.
It's not, right? So it's a process. And so if I can help women, and anybody for that, I like to say women and a few smart men, help them understand that, it's a journey to get there. If we all could just live that way, well, then I'd be out of a job. But it's not that easy. We're not born that way. We're born, with we're born fallen. We're born with a mindset that is less than, and then we build upon that depending on our environment.
Sure.
And so yeah, that's why grace is really the last one. And when you learn it, though, it's just so much more rewarding versus just going through the motion of, okay, I forgive them, but really deep down you haven't. So
right.
Yeah, so yeah, that's why grace is the last mindset that I teach.
It's huge. I actually have a little story about how that occurred in my brain. After my divorce, I was single for 10 years, and I was in and out of, I'm not like a casual dater, but I'm a serial monogamist. So I'd meet a guy and I'd date him for a while, and that wouldn't work out usually. And then I would find somebody else. And that's just sort of how it went.
Right.
And because of my upbringing, I over and over and over and over again kept picking toxic narcissistic men, thinking he feels so comfortable. I feel like home with him. Well, I felt like home with him because he was exactly like my mom. And he made me feel the same way and pushed me back into that toxic relationship template that I'd had forever. And
it's the chronic thinking. Yep.
It's the chronic thinking. I could not pull myself out of it. Yep. I mean, I pulled myself out, but then I would get sucked back in. I couldn't break free of that template, of that pattern. And then I was doing a lot of writing, and I was intensely working with my therapist and really trying to get at what those trigger points were and what was causing me to do all of that. And I had this epiphany while I was dating people that it was more important for me to like me when I was on a date with a guy than it was for the guy to like me. He liked me. And it took me till I was 46 years old to figure that out. Yes. But it was maybe 47. But because my grandmother had always play the husband game, you have to do what you can to make yourself palatable and presentable enough so that he likes you and proposes, because that's the goal.
Yeah, right? That was that generation, right?
Right. So that was the template. My dating advice came from my grandmother. I mean, screwed in the head. So I remember sitting on a date with a guy and then realizing I don't like him. I don't like me with him. I don't like this energy here. And then it was like that aha moment. And I went back to my therapist and I explained that. And she gave me applause, here's the moment. So then the next guy I meet, I fell back into it again. And this time I didn't see it at all. I saw it quicker. It only took me 6 weeks to figure it out. But in the end, my therapist was just like, well, why did you fall into it again? I thought you had learned. You had learned. Why did you let yourself go there again? And I said, I think this was the universe's last test.
Yes.
And it clunked me over the head with a 4x4. This was the awakening. This was the cluck.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen if you don't actually put into motion at these things. If you don't create actionable behaviors from what you learned, you're going to still wind up in the same position that you were in before. And it was this huge aha moment. And I just decided that that wasn't going to happen anymore.
Awesome.
And it was like a week later, I got together with my new husband. Like it
DCC,
just clicked.
Destructive crisis condition. That's why I call it. It's a condition. It's a habitual thing that we do. Right. It's not a feeling. It's not, we create feelings around it, but it's not. It's a skill. Right. Unfortunately, it's a skill. So we can unlearn it. And I think so many women think it's emotional. It's not emotional. It may have been learned out of emotions, but it's a skill. It's just a really bad skill. So let's unlearn it and move forward. So, fabulous. I love it. I call it the palm to the forehead moments, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Faceplant city. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I for those of, I work with a lot of faith-based women. So I'm like, Jesus sometimes is sitting up there going like this, or God, he's sitting up there going, oh my gosh. So you want to do this the hard way? Okay. All right.
We can do it the hard way.
Yeah, we'll do it 10 more times. All right. Because he'll do it 10 more times. And they're like, oh, why doesn't God love me? Oh, God loves you, sweetheart.
That's why you're getting another do-over.
That's why you're getting another do-over. But he's like, we're going to do it the hard way. I'm glad it only took you 2. So you get,
no. 10 years of that.
Okay.
And then there was the final 4x4 and I was done.
I love it. Thank you for that. I'll remember those stories. I won't say who. I'll just say I was talking to somebody one day.
It's in my memoir, the whole thing. The whole entire story is in there, From the first kiss when I was 14 to getting married, and my mother's death and the whole entire thing. So it's there. So this was very cool. I'm very thrilled, Shari. This was, and I like these. For you. I like these steps. It makes a lot of sense to me thinking about all of this, and I think it's going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people listening.
Well, I hope so, and that's the ultimate goal is if I can make them have their own palm to the forehead a little bit quicker.
Well, exactly.
And bring a little bit of joy quicker, bring peace quicker into women's lives. That's the whole goal. And I just love it. I was told one time, Shari, some of your best successes are ones you may never hear about. Yeah. And I live on that, right? Like, so I may not get to meet all of your audience, but hopefully they'll email me and let me know. But if not, I hope they remember this and thank you. I'm excited for you. I think this is the start of flying, right? Permission to fly, girlfriend, permission to fly.
And we have the same message, the same motivator,
yes.
Like I've gone through all of this crap and all of this learning and all of these, skills that I've acquired. And my mission is to share them with other people and maybe shorten the amount of time that they spend in crisis and are able to give themselves permission to lead lives that they love sooner than I did.
Absolutely. Well, that's why we ended up connecting. I believe that.
I believe so. So how do listeners get in touch with you when they want more information or they want to work with you or they want to get your book or ask you a question?
Yes. Yeah. Well, if they want to follow, so it's Shari, Shari, and it's Strong, Strong. You not believe how many people do ask me how to spell that. So sharistrong.org, O-R-G. Okay. And and from there's connections to programs and, free assessments and all kinds of things. And of course, Twitter, Shari Strong 1, or Instagram, it's Shari Strong 1. Just by any of those, look up Shari Strong, Google it.
Awesome. I'll link all of these things to the description in the podcast. And when I upload it to YouTube, it'll be in the description there too. So
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for asking me. And I wish you all abundance and all good things and many people that you're going to help. And I just wish all good things for everybody that hears this.
Yes, me as well. I hope that as well. And I'm very, very glad that you were here and that it was you who is here for the inaugural launch of this
Thank you.
helpful, motivating, inspiring, wonderful podcast that's going to help a lot of people.
This was fun. This was
Awesome.
fun. We'll come back. I'll come back in a year or so. See where
Oh,
you're
good.
at.
We'll talk about your book.
You. Yeah,
That's
there
awesome.
we go. Okay, good idea.
Yeah, we'll talk about your book. I'll read it and we'll chat. We'll unpack that.
All right.
Awesome.
It's a good date. I'm excited.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Shari.